Yeah, subscribe to the channel. We welcome you to the History Channel forever and invite you to watch the video with our new author story. Asia decided to put aside her worries and happiness for now. She will work for at least a month and then decide whether she is lucky or not. Most of her acquaintances, when they found out that she was going to get a job as a maid and even managed to place a resume on the site of the search for vacancies, had a foreboding about this job. It turned out that any colleague of her cousin's aunt and friend, sister and husband who decided to contact this case. No one is advised to repeat this. Of course, if there are no other options. Alia did not see any other urgent options. She needs to earn money for the operation. The queue for the free one may not be enough. This was clearly confirmed by the doctor in the hospital where Alia got a job right after medical college. The operation should be done in the next 6 months. I wouldn't count on you, but I was already collecting money. After that conversation, Alia called her mother, and they had a final brainstorm. They used to be afraid, put off, hoped for something, but now they have a premonition that there is nothing to wait for and no time. They were looking for options, what could be done. There was nothing to sell, except for the close apartment in the native Bezitsk, where until recently they lived with their mother and grandmother together. There is no property. Earlier, Alia and grandmother slept in a bedroom on narrow beds, behind the curtains with some kind of Japanese pattern, and Mom on the couch in the kitchen. When Alia left for St. Petersburg to study and work, Mom finally moved into the room. She swore that she felt much more comfortable on the kitchen sofa, and now she was giggling happily on the phone. Oh, and finally I am on a cozy bed behind the curtain like a Japanese girl. You are a hypocrite, she said in a cheerful way, who never wanted to change places with me. I suggested it. Mom was indignantly saying that the best children and old people are, and Alice immediately imagined her philosophical, good-natured little mind. She missed her mom and grandma and didn't admit it to anyone. It seemed that she would be laughed at for such a funny childish feeling. When we walked around St. Petersburg with Luda in the most beautiful places, she always thought, I wish I could walk around here with my mom. She loves St. Petersburg, and she hasn't been here for a long time. Irina, Ali's mom, worked as a geography teacher in a regular refugee school. She always wanted to travel, but could only afford modest trips around the 3 nearest areas, and always carried little Alia with her, enjoying her curiosity. When Grandma began to get sick, Mom was generally attached to the house. Irina never complained about it, but Alia felt how sad Mom was that she couldn't go anywhere on weekends. Alia and her mother discussed the option of getting into a loan, but the right amount, looking at her mother's salary, was only a huge percentage. Alia hasn't worked half a year yet. She has nothing to say. Alia, let's be honest. What if we can't give it back? These loans scare me. We are barely making ends meet, and we will be half hungry with the loan. But these are flowers. We can tolerate it. But in life, such fatal coincidences happen sometimes. If something happens to one of us, the other one will not be able to pay for it alone, and the human species will come to shake off the debts. No, we need something else. We need to look for another job. Mom was enough to get a job. Sometimes some monsters needed a geographer. Sometimes someone needed nannies' hourly services. Of course, it was funny money. Mom couldn't choose something more serious because she was afraid to leave her grandmother without a lookup for a long time. I wish I could think about it earlier. You fool. Mom just shared her thoughts with a sass. To drop out of school and learn some online profession. Interesting, there are tour agents in the remote. And I got involved in this job. I don't know why. And now it's too late to drink to the bar. Money is needed quickly, and something needs to be done. Of course, Irina knew the answer to her question, but she didn't want to look sentimental. She loved her job and was able to get along with her students. They really respected geography, considered her lessons interesting, and behaved more politely than many other subjects. Irina and Alia decided that if one of them didn't find a job for a month, they would have to work in a credit cabal. And so the month was almost over, and the search for work was not successful. It's okay. You think a lot of people take loans and somehow get out of it. I'm such a caretaker, selfish, afraid to risk for my mother's sake. Mom was talking to herself, talking on the phone with Asia. In general, we wait a week and step into the bank coldly. Alla was silent, tense, hoping for a miracle. She pointed out in her resume that she has a red medical college diploma. What if it helps? She pointed out that she plans to study pediatrics in the future. Even the reason for the rapid search for a new job was pointed out as it is. You need to raise money for the operation of your relative. Luda's friend assured her. This is absolutely unnecessary. Better remove it. No one cares about your personal circumstances. On the contrary, they will still think that you will constantly. Alia thought a little and said, no, I'd better leave it. What if they think the opposite? If the reason is so serious, it will be good to work. You yourself yesterday also claimed that in a favorable situation people do not sign such work. Well, yes, I said. You are memorable. Luda reluctantly agreed. And the main thing is only for the first offer, do not be short of it. If the horror is terrible, what horror to consider terrible, Luda? I'm sure I'm into him too. I try to make fun of Alia. You'll understand. You've studied the distribution of salaries. There's probably the most common, typical option for inexperienced sit-ups. For a small amount of money, some heavy, lying granny who needs to be turned over, washed and all that, and even a little bit of a caprice. If the granny is heavy, my relatives will immediately refuse. Alia calmed her friend down. My KG don't inspire trust. I told you it's not the first day, it's not a job for you. Well, what about me? Well, whatever, try it. Yes, the first 2 weeks of the search for a job showed that the situation was even more sad than Luda predicted. There was no discussion about any choice. Several people agreed to an inexperienced seat at the medical college. But the girls refused to do it at once. You're thin, but you'll get there in the first day. We're just wasting time, for which we could find someone stronger. You're too young and impressive, it's obvious. How did your mother let you go to work like that? I imagined you differently. My mother-in-law and the unbreakable elephant will cry. You're not good enough for us. She didn't listen to anything. She didn't see any life stories. Many of them didn't complain about their relatives, because they would have to split with money and let in a stranger's house. Of course, she met her beloved relative. One was tired, and the other was still a very effective lady. Years old, she asked Asia to wait minutes in the next room while she was asking her father's opinion. And then she came out and said, you can see that you are a decent and kind girl, and your father liked you very much. And that's why he is categorically against you taking care of him, as a bedridden patient is required. He says that he is ashamed of a beautiful girl and that it is better to die. This is a quote. Sorry for the lost time, but we need someone else. Luda's friend was not surprised at all. I thought so. Do you know who they all need? Remember our Valiachka Veronko. She's almost a mental wrestler. Unbearable, indescribable, impenetrable. She'll stuff the seeds in her cheek and can start working. Psychologically, not every patient will feel comfortable, but the family will feel calmer. You're a good girl. Alia laughed. Valiachka would hear you. But I'm honest. Isn't it a perfect portrait? There was nothing to argue about. Although Luda thought she was more adapted to life, she often grumbled at Alia. But it was much better with Luda than when you were left alone in a half-empty, narrow, rented room, alone with your thoughts. But on that day, Alia thought for nothing about another hopeless evening. She did not have time to say hello to her neighbors and go into her room, so she gave herself a phone call. And the pleasant melodic female voice, in cinema-like voices of the stewardess of the business class, told her that tomorrow at p.m. she would be waiting for an interview at such an address, if she would be given a voiceover of the reward for her work. This is a private house, The address on the map will be sent now. Alia understood without a mistake. Not a patient's relative called, and just in case tried to break through the stream of the voice of the speaker. Lady, excuse me, I don't want to waste your time. I might not be able to come to you right away. Can I ask you a few questions? All questions are for the interview. The interviewer answered with unwavering politeness. In your resume, the customer is satisfied with everything. There are no clarifying questions. The decision on the job will be made only as a result of a personal meeting. Thank you very much. I will come by 7 o'clock. Almost accidentally, I came across a woman who spoke in a tone. I wonder if she thought that she was being overreacted. Well, we have to go. Although the beginning is somewhat strange. A rent of a seat through the secretary. For whom is this? But as my beloved grandmother once said, every next attempt can be successful. Alia no longer remembers what the grandmother's words were about, and the phrase was engraved in her memory. Thinking about it, she decided to take a taxi. It was already autumn. The white nights had come to an end, and she would have to look for a road in the unknown area, so she could be late for the meeting. The taxi driver brought Alia to a high-ranged fence, behind which there was a 2-story cottage with an elegant stone face-off and the same stone arch at the entrance. The garden lantern lit up the arch so that it looked like a cave grotto, and from that Ollie became slightly creepy. She has never been to such houses in her life, and here she is working. People live, the taxi driver whispered, and surprisingly looked at Ollie. Probably I would like to ask what she is doing here, but she definitely doesn't look like a girl from the escort. I came to work to get a seat. Ollie answered the unasked question. Oh, good luck to you then, the taxi driver wished her. I hope the salary will not be greedy. He left, and before the appointed time, there were minutes left. The light was on in the house, probably the security there, and Alia was already noticed, so it's stupid to walk along the fence and wait, probably. And she pressed the soft, thoughtful bell in the gate. Hello, I'm at the interviewer's seat. A little early, sorry. I was warned that you would come. Come on, I'll take you to the house, answered the senior guard. I followed him under the stone arch. For some reason, the conditions from some old fairy tale were remembered. You can't look back. And she didn't look back. Inside the house, there was an English cottage in small towns, where the actions of grandmother's favorite films usually took place. With aged dark wood, brick ceilings, bookstores, ceramics, landscapes on the walls, covered with pillows with embroidery. Alia didn't know, but she guessed that this unobtrusive comfort, where everything is in its intended place, costs a lot of money. From the living room to the second floor, she led the inner stairs with elegant railings. The housekeeper went downstairs, but there was a cozy, sad silence in the house. A few minutes later, a friendly woman with a white chrysanthemum in a pot with a bush in the middle of the stairs slipped out of the unnoticed door. She greeted and said, "Now, Mr. Herman Danilovic will come to you." Alia realized that the housekeeper was not the one who was talking. And the truth is, when the woman went to the garden, and in a minute from the opposite staircase of the door leading into the house, a tall old man appeared, a dry-haired and. How old can he be? Probably far over 70, if you believe in wrinkles. But you can't say anything about this gentleman, old man. The chevelure is gray as smoke, but thick, slightly wavy, and beautifully trimmed. Free pants, thick shoes, and shoes from the storehouse could well belong to a 30-year-old. The owner suddenly intercepted the look of Ollie, understandingly smiling, with only one eye, and spoke slightly ironically. "Hello. Have you managed to estimate who you will be working with? I am German Danilovich Pokrovsky, the owner of this house, and the only representative of my own family. I am looking for a seat for myself." "Oleg, thank you. You can come back to your seat." He let the guard go again and pointed his hand at the chair near the fireplace, again addressing Callie. "Sit down and tell us about yourself, and then I draw my wishes." She listened to the chair, and the owner preferred to stay. He conveniently, without any compulsion, strolled on the fireplace and showed everyone his view, that he had plenty of time, and he was ready to listen to the almost detailed story of Alina's life. German Danilovic, I have hardly anything to add to the information from the summary. She was confused. Alia Bardina, from Bezitsk. Years with a difference, I graduated from medical college here in St. Petersburg. I worked as a nurse in the hospital for a short time, but I know well about the care for the seriously ill. This perspective does not scare me. Usually, the hires themselves ask me questions when they see me. For example, how am I going to cope with large physical loads or psychological ones? Alia tried to come up with something that could be told about herself, but not a single idea came to her mind. And the fireplace was once again haunted by her silence. But it didn't seem to annoy Herman Danilovic. Okay, so he added the questions that led to the questions, having lost his short, brash beard. The behavior, appearance, and speech of the educated girl. Most likely you are smart and observant. Why didn't you go straight to the medical university? No one asked this question to Alia yet, and she never thought about how to answer him to help the work system. Don't panic. Herman Danilovic is a lonely man, in his own words. Maybe he is used to talking to security and other personnel for life to dispel boredom. And she panicked, immediately afraid of a trick. If I answer you honestly, you will think that I'm trying to complain you, Alia warned. Thank you for the warning, try it, he kindly allowed. In principle, no secrets. Everything is as many people have, she said. I have only a grandmother, a pensioner, and a mother from my relatives who works in our refugee teachers of geography. I've been studying medicine for years, and if I study with goodwill, I can't work full-time. And there's no one to support me all these years. On the contrary, my family needs my help. I plan to work after college, first where they would take me without experience, and then look for vacancies in private clinics. I was hoping to save some money and try to enter the Institute for Pediatrics in years. Your story is not a complaint, said German Danilovic. It will just happen a little later than those who had something to hold on to. There is no tragedy in this. I haven't thought about it at all in the last month, said Alia. Now it is important to collect money for my grandmother, and then we'll see. German Danilovic again rubbed his beard, nodded slightly, changed the position of the fireplace. Now I'm a little bit bored to talk about my wishes for a seat. This regular unit was strongly recommended by my doctor, whom I believe. I'm not a doctor. I dare to believe that their recommendations are constantly shaking for health, capable of turning a person into a ruin sooner or later. I have enough examples of friends who refuse to live a full life, protecting their health, and now they are in the other world. And because no one knows how much he cares. So I have another principle closer. Everything that brings pleasure cannot be harmful. And my doctor, even a little bit with me, agree. Here I have a small business. I do their own pleasure. I devote him a lot of time. This is a thrill. It gives me the energy to live. But extremes are always stupid. I can't forget that I'm not a boy, and I have some very unpleasant disease. And I don't want to get down in a funny pose somewhere on a business meeting. I still have a reputation and other regalia. Social mass. Why disappoint people? Therefore, I need a person which will make injections on time, make sure that I take the medicine on time and don't drink strong drinks, and all sorts of other things. I'm not a bedridden patient, and I don't need a hygienic care. Of course, it happens that I get really upset, but then I create problems only for the bodyguard and a couple of people from the security staff, who I pay extra for. The nurse won't see these problems. If you are accurate, you won't see them. If you agree to this position, these harsh, obedient women, experienced in the prevention of paralysis, cause me a gloomy mood. They remind me of the inevitability of my transformation into old ruin. I immediately said that they are being pushed in vain. The mood is the most important thing for health. I know this better than the doctors. I need someone who will be pleased to talk to. If you don't mind, and the amount of reward is okay, I will be glad. The contract will be made in all forms. The payment is signed. The processing is also. Work with accommodation. You still won't have to pay for the housing. If you agree, Alia will show you the room. To receive detailed instructions on how to treat an experienced patient. Probably, the nurse, with a careful smile, corrected Alia. And I, as I said, mockingly raised my eyebrows at German Danilovic. I agree with your proposal. When do I have to start working? I will probably have to work in the hospital for the next 2 weeks, but then I can move immediately on the day of the dismissal. Alia, I agree to be sad for 2 weeks in anticipation. The old gentleman calmed down. You just don't promise to throw yourself into this hell for a minute. Let's do it this way. Now you're talking to Grigory Lvovich. He gives you all the unpleasant things about me. If you don't change your mind after that, we show you the kitchen room and all the convenience. And we are waiting for your call after the conversation in the hospital when you will be able to be fired. From the next date, we conclude our contract. The conversation with Grigory Lvovich turned out to be the same as Alia had expected. The doctor immediately warned that he prefers to call things by their names. She would very much like her perceptions to be fantasies of impressive girls, but they were confirmed. German Danilovic is seriously ill. This was confirmed by the contents of his list of medicines. It is much easier for him to make a mistake when he treats him with neglect. That's how he is, said Grigory Lvovich. And you will have to treat his illness seriously, but do not show the face, play the employer. Will you cope? Think. This is work for a person of a certain kind. It's easy at first glance. Actress, nurse, and psychologist in one bottle. I understand that my patient wouldn't choose a dark nurse with heavy hands for this role, but I didn't expect to see a very young girl like you. I think I can do it, said Ali. With such detailed instructions as yours, everything will be easier than I thought. I have good memory. I will learn the whole order and will not give you a reason to worry. I will be worried about your place too. I just look like a schoolgirl. In fact, I am a responsible person. Well, great, we'll see. I remember from the summary that you have serious personal interest in working with good pay. And Pokrovsky is far from greedy. You can't take this from him. Yes, first of all, it's about this, Ali honestly confirmed. But not only that, it will be really nice for me to help Herman Danilovic. I have no doubt, the doctor said. Girls usually have respect for a person with a life position like him. In general, just don't overdo it. It's both romance and your duty as a doctor, and everything will be fine. In the hospital, no one dared openly express dissatisfaction that a good nurse is being fired, not having time to work for 6 months. Such circumstances are common for girls. Then money is really the most important thing. Upon finding out the date of the dismissal, Alia first called the secretary of Shipokrovsky to agree on the date of signing the contract. Having waited for the answer call, she immediately called her mother. You're brave. You're not what I am. I guess I'm totally off the track of my life in school because my work like this causes anxiety. What kind of people will surround you there? The address of that house where you'll live is not necessary for me. And the salary is surprisingly high. Unsaid duties immediately come to mind, like in small script loan contracts. I understand that all this might be so scary only in my head. Yes, Mom, only in your smart head, which fits the whole globe. Alla politely laughed, wishing to cheer up her mom. The salary is high because the schedule is not standardized. I don't even have full weekends. No one will give me a shot. And I can't order anyone to monitor the treatment. And at night, they have the right to wake up if they need help. I will call you and tell you about my life and environment so that you can be calmer. And the old lady, too, she loves stories with new characters. And don't even think about confessing to the old lady that you have been working on this kind of work, said the mother. It's bad for her to get nervous. Well, what kind of doctor are you after that if you don't understand yourself? She doesn't know anything about our decision. She's waiting for a planned operation. Our naive old girl. You will call, tickle how you like everything, and the city and the team in the hospital, and let her sleep peacefully. It's enough to feel that you have to earn money for life instead of studying at the university. Luda's friend didn't believe Valia's story until she saw the contract. Unlike her mother, she wasn't surprised by the size of the reward. Well, yes, not bad. I envy her. But I could do more for this job. No weekends, no passports, hours a day in this house. You can go to the city, at least have some life, or you'll get a raise while you save up. Luda, but everything is written there. During the day, there is enough free time. If you wish, you can go to the city. At least every day you can have time to ride for a short time, to walk with you. But you don't have to pay for a room and food. I think I will live on a full pension. You can pay off almost all the salary. Why are you grumbling? I'm grumbling because I don't hear the joy in your voice. You probably also think that everything is not as carefree as it seemed at first glance. Alia easily pulled her friend's hair behind her tail and her hair on her back. Stop bothering me and make yourself feel better. By the time Alia had worked at Pokrovsky's for 2 months, her mother and friends' fears began to subside. She preferred not to tell about the difficulties and didn't bother telling about the rest in her stories. The atmosphere in the house behind the elegant forged fence was. This is how this person was called. Zhana Stepanovna, a cook in one person, lived in a light, warm house where all the walls were occupied by photos and frames. A son with a daughter-in-law and a granddaughter, who had recently learned to walk. Working for Pokrovsky, Zhana's mother helped the young family pay the mortgage. She was immediately delighted that another woman appeared in the house. Born in the South, open and friendly, she immediately surrounded Alia with caring. She fed her with her culinary skills and began to learn to cook. Sincerely surprised that such an adult girl has such a strong culinary knowledge. How is it that neither mom nor grandmother especially likes to cook? Well, this terrible disgrace on someone in the family should end. In addition to Zhana, 2 bodyguards and a personal bodyguard lived in the house. The rest of the staff was related to the Pokrovsky company, and only a few employees appeared in his residence. Why would I move the whole office into the house if I have to? I'll get there myself. For the rest, there is the achievement of technical progress. Herman Danilovic thought so. Every day, almost every morning, Marina's secretary would come to him, the one who invited Alia to the interview. And they worked for several hours in Pokrovsky's office, communicating with the other video-connected employees. By lunchtime, Marina would leave, armed with a lot of orders and instructions, as soon as they fit into her beautiful head. Sometimes Artyom Ivanovich, the head of the company's security service, would come, unpleasant, or a man of uncertain age with a grumpy, eternally unhappy face. She felt awkward at the entrance to the office of German Danilovic with medicine. She looked at me like a bug under a magnifying glass. She said, I will have to learn not to notice it. I have clear instructions from the doctor. No matter how busy German Danilovic is, he must take the medicine on time. You can grumble unpleasant grumbles, fish in eyes, and I will come when I need to. The nickname she came up with seemed very accurate to her, and it was her small revenge for the unpleasant looks of the security chief. I see you don't like my security guard. Once Herman Danilovic noticed her without any indignation. Well, yes, I agree, man, he's not too pleasant. But he is the highest professional of his business, and I don't talk to him about private matters. Alia thought that she would never be able to deliberately separate one from another. Pokrovsky turned out to be a very interesting person, and he would like to ask a lot about him. Alia stopped herself, not wanting to look naive. She is the same hired worker as others, and for her frequent conversations with the hire are possible only by his initiative. German Danilovic loved to talk, but it did not mean that he was going to tell the details of his biography. By the end of the second month of work at Pokrovsky's, Alan knew enough about his views on life and almost nothing about his life. It was not difficult for her not to mention his illness, but she had to stop herself when she wanted to ask about her family. German Danilovic was not like a person who would like to live alone for the rest of his life. "Oh, Alichka, I don't know," Jana said. "I've worked for Danilovic for so long. I've never seen any relatives come. But at least one." "Who?" "No." It was interesting for a long time what kind of fate it was, but no one to ask. The gardener who comes does not know anything. I'm afraid the guards are interested in something. They're suspicious guys and can be annoying. "Why do you need this kitchen cook?" "So I know no more of yours. Now I'm used to it and don't think about it anymore. And before, I often thought about it. After all, there are such useless men like my former one. And anyway, at old age, there are those who will take care of them. And here a decent person and no one. For money, it's still not the one you will convince me. It's okay, you got so involved and many like robots work. Someone is spinning around, and the person is still alone." Alya's room was on the same floor as Pokrovsky's, which was not surprising for the chair. Only the bodyguard's room, which had an adjacent entrance with the owner's apartments, was closer. Coming early in the morning to Herman Danilovic's bedroom to measure the pressure and put the dropper, Alya constantly heard loud music behind the doors. It was always a classic: Schubert, Chopin, Berlioz, Verdi. "You can leave it," asked the owner when Alya came to do the procedures in the early morning of her work. "Is the medicine not prohibiting the listening of the droplet?" Most modern specialists recognize the therapeutic impact of classical music on the body, confirmed Alya, unable to hold back a smile. It turned out that in the house of Pokrovsky, in addition to the owner and the servants, there was a rich collection of retro records and new vinyl. "And you will not refuse to him." Grigory Lvovich warned Alya that their patient had a possible period of worsening of the disease. But nothing like this has happened yet. The doctor of the hospital, Pokrovsky, was not tired of reminding the inexperienced nurse not to lose her vigilance. It is especially necessary to be on guard if our Pokrovsky thinks of getting together for some kind of a pathos meeting, negotiations there, business dinner. It's too energy-consuming after such trips to the light. Sometimes you have to restore it for a while. And here comes the moment that Alya was afraid of in advance. Pokrovsky was thinking of getting together for a business meeting. The seat found out about it from him in the morning. The instructions of Grigory Lvovich immediately woke up in A.L.'s head as if he had been taught the text of the "This is a very important conversation for me, Mademoiselle Alesh, and I just came up with an idea that is so simple. Let me take you with me. Don't be so panicky and hasty to come up with excuses. Why not? You are doing this now, aren't you? Consider this a special assignment, a personal request of the employer. Follow me so that nothing happens for sure. It will be enough for you to be present so that nothing happens to me. Pure psychology. I'm used to trusting you. I feel calm when you're around." Alina took a breath of fresh air and exhaled the only objection that could seem to be a bloody weight. "Will you feel confident, Herman Danilovic, if your business partners see that you need to accompany the seat to the negotiations?" She didn't have time to be afraid of her own untact question, as the old gentleman replied. "Yeah, not bad. You managed to study me, Alya. Someone else would have never guessed. And in this case, too, there is an obvious solution. Why do I need other companions when I have a young, beautiful daughter? Not only will no one accept to be sorry or laugh behind my back, I will also envy. Besides, I have a habit of making reports about potential partners, their tastes, passions, views on life. Gentlemen from China, with whom I will meet, are very attached to traditional family values. So, father, in the company of a young daughter, a precise fit into the image of a reliable partner. Do you help Alya? Of course, for your health, I would be calmer. I started thinking in my ear, but I can let you down. I don't know the etiquette at all. I would easily go with you to a regular visit, and I would look ridiculous and ruin the impression on such a meeting. Nothing like that, Pokrovsky cut off without a liver. You imagine the reception at the Buckingham Palace at once. So, all these business meetings don't remind him of anything. They are much simpler. You will see for yourself. You will have less prejudice. No one will approach you with questions like an interview. Moreover, communication through the translator. You just need to behave naturally and look after me as usual. The secretary of the marina will consult you on all sorts of details. She is very experienced in etiquette questions, educational culturologist. At the same time, he will tell you about the activities of our organization. You didn't ask me, and I was silent. You have a whole week in reserve. You'll have time to get ready without hurrying. Spend as much as you need on the service of the hairdresser and the purchase of the outfit. The payment is at the expense of the company. Marina will bring the card today. This is my last argument that you can express. There is nothing to wear. Actually, the last argument Ale wanted to make was Grigory Lvovish's. But to her greatest surprise, he only sighed and announced, I refuse to help you to take a break. It would be better for the patient's health if you accompanied him. In my experience, a rare nurse is so pedantic in all instructions. Looking into your eyes, I would never suspect such a feature in your life. Besides, our Pokrovsky doesn't get positive emotions. And here is such a cute adventure with masquerade, so everything is in favor. Do not doubt and gather. Luda's friend also did not understand the alas of fears. Yes, don't you really want to see how everything is arranged there? But what kind of job could you still portray the daughter of the general director? Use the opportunity, it will be that to tell children, oh, let's go shopping together and get you a dress and shoes. But Marina will go with us. She knows what shops the daughters of people like Pokrovsky wear, and we don't. Okay, then I'll go with you another time, so as not to spoil my reputation. It's better for you not to appear in my company with noble madams. It's good that Alia didn't tell her mother, but held back. Right, don't speak, said Anna. All mothers have rich imagination, I know that. But if you're interested in my opinion, no soul can guess that you're not Danilovic's daughter. You'd better dress up, and you're a ready queen. On the way home from negotiations, Alia suddenly realized that her recent frightening events are much more harmless than her expectations. The meeting took place in an expensive restaurant, which was loved by Chinese partners in their last visit to St. Petersburg. The topic was the export of a large batch of mineral fertilizers, and the profitable contract with Pokrovsky was closed. Alia didn't understand anything about the deals and decided not to meddle. It was better not to be distracted from her direct duties. But it didn't seem like that German Danilovic was tired of negotiations, and she unnoticeably shook herself. The youngest of the three Chinese turned to her through the translator, when she said, What is better to see in St. Petersburg if you have only 2 days? And no one from the guests thought that it was a terrible business question for her. And Ali once again praised herself for choosing a simple, flowing turquoise dress on the brittles instead of the burgundy one, which Marina strongly advised. Marina, that dress is like for a princess, and this one is like for Alia Bardina. She made her choice. Marina agreed. So, we need to take this one. When you feel yourself in clothes, you behave much more naturally. Alia was amazed by her polite calmness. She was tired of shopping more than usual working days. Not all girls like shopping. After signing the contract, the exchange was made with gifts. Pokrovsky presented the Chinese side with chess pieces of jade and Corel birch and personal business cards with a painting of Palik. But it seems that the habit of learning about the passions of partners was not only his property, and he was the only one who could smile here with one eye. The oldest representative of the Chinese company, with an oriental look in his eyes, and the one with a slight bow stretched Herman Danilovic, who took as if from nowhere a violin case and accompanied him with a phrase which was immediately translated by the translator. "We often and with pleasure remember the first meeting with you in St. Petersburg. Then, during our conversation, we managed to understand how much you love music. You mentioned then that you regret that you never learned to play the violin. But when a person is young in heart, like you, it's never too late to start. Let's hope our gift will help you in this." Herman Danilovic almost didn't hide that he was surprised and upset. He quietly thanked him for the respect he had been given. With a slight bow, he accepted the gift and immediately carefully handed it over to Alia. She didn't know how they behave in such cases. But when he found out about the logo on the case, he was just delighted to hear about it, addressing all those present. "This is definitely a great tool. This is Framus. They have very high quality. You have a great approach to choosing gifts." They barely sat down at the car that was delivered from the restaurant to go home, and then Ali asked quietly, "How do you feel, German Danilovic? Just be honest. I haven't felt so great for a long time. It doesn't hurt anywhere. Honestly, will you reveal where you get to know the quality of musical instruments?" It seems that the light trip really did not tire her. Kamalia got ready to tell how she got to know the violin, but she got a phone call. The deputy of Pokrovsky called at a given time to find out the results of the negotiations. Damn it, the striped ones, they should have rested already. He called the workers. Pokrovsky was happy to wipe his beard. "Let's come home. We'll come back to our conversation. He's interesting." The evening continued in the living room. The owner of the house refused to go upstairs. Not every day is given out to such a successful and pleasant event. Maybe we should forget about discipline for this. At least for this evening. Let's break the strict order. If I become an old rascal today, I'll wake up tomorrow younger by 10 years. I promise to not speak to Dr. Gregory. You helped me so much today, and I promise to be grateful. I will only respond to you with delight. Okay, but only once risked to give up Ollie. And try to keep it serious, but it didn't work out. Let's say that today it is useful to you. It is useful, the old rascal confidently repeated, looking at the old-fashioned bar. Only without cognac and whiskey, German Danilovic intercepted his gaze. "I agree with that," the owner promised on the boulder of the cane. "Our conversation on the way home was interrupted. I didn't have time to learn about your relationship with musical instruments. Nothing mysterious at all." A smiled, stroking the smooth violin case lying between them on the table. "Like many children, I was taught to play the piano and the violin at the same time, especially since my grandmother taught the violin. Many parents drive their children to the music school, and I myself ran with pleasure. I wanted to play like a grandmother. Many parents went to children's concerts not only to see the children's success, but also for the sake of grandmother's performances. They asked me to play, and then they called me to the bis. They listened to the game, hiding their breath. I'm not an expert, but I'm sure she could achieve more. Just something didn't work out. I never asked. If she doesn't tell, it means she doesn't want to remember. But to tell stories related to music and instruments, I don't need to ask my grandmother. She thought aloud about everything related to music. Because of this, I remembered some things that I shouldn't know, including about the German company Framus. Nevertheless, you decided to become a doctor," said Herman Danilovic, and looked at him in wonder. "The thing is, I didn't inherit my grandmother's musical talents. I play this fact, but I'm quite comfortable being a listener, especially since I don't live with music like my grandmother. If my friends have a piano in the house, I agree to play some song when other guests want to sing. That's all. Everyone is happy. When I went to St. Petersburg to study, I didn't do that, and I held the violin in my hands for the last time. I'm not sure if I remember how to play at all. And here's a chance to check," said Herman Danilovic, pointing his palm at the violin case on the table. "You'll try, right? I just want to hear it sound. No need for masterpieces. Let there be any simple exercise for the first-class music teacher, please. Alia realized that for now, it was the most inappropriate moment that could be thought of. She took out the violin from the case and took the violin and the bow in her hands, remembering her way of holding them, and decided to listen. I will play you my mother's favorite melody, just because I have always played it more often than others and have not forgotten it. Herman Danilovic silently bowed and sat down as straight as he could, putting his cane in front of him. Playing, Alia was glad that she had not forgotten anything important, and he listened to her game with intense attention, almost not moving, and not taking away the shining eyes from the fire in the fireplace. Here is the real original, a grateful person. No one else in the game had given such respect to Alia. When she finished playing, she tried to lay the instrument as softly and quietly as possible in the case. She didn't want to break Pokrovsky's strange, thoughtful silence. But a little time passed, and he turned his head to Callie, looked up at her and asked, "Who taught you this melody?" "Grandma, of course, I didn't learn from anyone else. She told me that my mother Ira, when she was little, she asked me to play this melody before going to sleep, or just when she was sad. And for decades, the taste of my mother hasn't changed. I like it too. It's simple, but there's something special. Do you know the author? I'd like to know more about him, but he's a mysterious and secretive author." Alia laughed briefly, trying to vent the nervous mood of the interlocutor. "But I still know something. This is Alevtina Glebovna Matveeva, my grandmother. I was also called Alevtina in her honor, but I don't really like my full name, so not all acquaintances know who didn't see my documents. What's the funniest thing is that my grandmother doesn't like her full name either. Only she has always preferred to be called Tina, not Alia. She even has a saying when she remembers her age," and blinked in the mirror. "Yes, people often, even full names of those who do not know nearby," said Herman Danilovic. He wanted to add something else, but he was slow. Ella noticed that he was still catching up with the painful fatigue that was pushed away by the pleasant events in the distant corner for him. "Let's go upstairs, Herman Danilovic. Now it's really time for you to take a bath, medicine, and rest. Too many emotions for one day. And I also talked about you. Thank you very much for the evening. I was really interested, and I also wanted to refuse. I was afraid. I'll call Ilya." Pokrovsky nodded. He was surprisingly talkative today. He didn't even take the time to chat with the bodyguard, but just let himself be quickly taken to sleep. When Alia came to give him the medicine, he listened to her and happily winked at her. "Good night, Alia. Thank you again for the evening. I'm sure that our guests today only think about my dark-haired daughter." Alia went downstairs with a smile. All the excitement of that day was behind her. It's a pity that the grandmother can't tell about it now. But everything is done for the grandmother as planned. We must run to Jeanna before going to bed, since she promised to report how everything went. Jeanna was so worried the day before that Alia had no choice but to go out to the light, that her dough for the pies did not want to rise. Anyway, that's what she claimed. Pokrovsky tried to speak quickly and quietly. His doctor gave clear instructions to the bodyguard about the boss nighttime calls. Night is only for rest, and that's it. "Artyom Ivanovich, are you asleep? Well, great. Write down Alevtina Glebovna Matveeva, years old, and the estate of Bezetsk. The rest of your guys will find out for themselves. We need to find out what operation she needs. Pay her and inform everyone who needs it. Yes, to get her through as quickly as possible. Yes, the amount is not important. Go through the fund as an address sponsorship help, or as you want, the lawyers know, agree with them. I have a detailed report on your actions and the state of this woman before and after. Consider this your priority task for the near future, until you get the result. It can be considered that the powerful flyer has already earned, and the money about the hospital will be received in the morning. It is quite possible that when he will be brought breakfast, he will be called from the district clinic and will be told that the operation is paid. This is the first and most important thing that he can do for her. How to act next will be clear a little later when the operation goes well. In any case, in the morning he will call the head of the legal department and his personal lawyer. You should not lie about the term of your life. You just need to finish your earthly affairs on time and correctly. What is she like now, Tinchik? He is sure that he would not be disappointed to see her. She is probably one of those rare women who keep a special charm in old age. If we believe the words of his granddaughter, she is still ironic. And she remembers him. It was only he who could call her Tinchik. He came up with this nickname himself. She composed this melody when they were resting in Sochi and played it every morning at his request. Yes, for this, she was made up, laughed Tinshin, in order to wake German and all his best feelings from the very morning. She is managed like a lazy crumb until lunch, and the water in the sea is always different. You need to see her all Gurkha. He adored Tinshin and enjoyed every day of that Sochi summer. But he thought that such days would be enough in his life. That would be even better. German Pokrovsky quickly received everything he set out to get. He did not connect it with his own mind and character, but just considered himself lucky, and this set him up for a cheerful mood and made him attractive for girls. To start at least with the fact that he was born into a family of a laborer, and from childhood got used to the best of all. Starting opportunities are a great thing. You cannot fight for the place under the sun, but allow yourself to be amazed and feel the taste of life. One of the wonders of German was the love for classical music. No, of course, he listened to everything that was fashionable to listen to in his environment, but he loved classical music. Of course, there were no problems with tickets to any concerts, thanks to his father's connections. And no one was surprised that his lover became a violinist from Philharmonic. Of course, before her, Hares had romance. There were interesting ones among them, but all this turned out to be a boy's youth, a rehearsal. He thought of tying life with Tinchik. With his father's efforts, his career was successfully moving forward, and soon he was given a foreign job in one of the countries of the social camp. This meant that he had to get married, otherwise he would have to forget about his duties abroad. And here he was lucky. He marries out of love, and not in a hurry to marry the right bride of his circle, as many in such cases. At the same time, he had no doubt that his choice would be approved by his parents. Thin, educated, talented Tinchik, and could be a wife of an ambassador. But only German thought so. Father and mother, with whom he introduced his daughter-in-law, who returned from Sochi. At first she was really approved. Mother was even surprised. Who could have thought that her aboltus had a decent taste? But in a week, father, hiding his eyes, declared the bride is not suitable. A whole bunch of unreliable connections. Some of the ancestors were ex-convicts, others were ex-convicts, some were in the occupation. The only one who survived was a single uncle, some kind of skinny theater artist, who had been in contact with a bad company for years. So, yes, a lovely girl, it's a shame, but you can't do anything. There's time, find another one. Hermann was fluttering in a strong rage, like a mad bull, but his fluttering was worth nothing, and no one should call him sympathy. He chose a foreign business and his own career. He married the daughter of his father's nomenclature friend. And love, well, there will be love. He's not dead yet. He had enough cruelty to tell the shadow everything as it is. He can't marry her. If I could, I'd marry her, but I can't. It's all right, no matter how much she cries. I'll find someone who can. I'll be honest, too. I'm not going to wait for you. Look for another lover. I've been thinking about my wife. And she left, tapping her heels. And they never saw each other again. When he returned from a long trip, German accidentally ran into Inga's friend and shadow colleague, in a fancy restaurant. He was a bit embarrassed as a schoolboy. And after a few greetings and a few meaningless words, Nefpapat asked, "How is Tina?" "What else do you need from Tina, you animal?" Inga asked in a calm tone. "What could you do to her in life?" You did everything. We parted civilly, Inga. She is a smart girl. She didn't even have a hysterical state. I recognized Tinka. She is too proud for hysterics. Her heart was torn apart watching her. It was scary. She just quit and went to the province, to the homeland of her ancestors. Probably to not meet anyone like you anymore. I left pregnant. I gave birth to my daughter, Irina. I would have made a break in her place. If I were sober, I would not have talked to you at all now. So I have to go home. Hermione had been in a bad mood for a long time. She lied. She didn't lie, Jenga. It doesn't look like she lied. She just knew that he would persuade herself to forget about it. It was in his cowardly manner. What if he finds out that he has a child? He won't even be allowed to go to the threshold. Tinchik has a completely different life. Let this life be happy, and he needs to settle his own. 5 years later, he divorced. More precisely, his wife left on her own to the one who loved her. They had no children, and each of them gradually had their own separate life. They parted in a friendly manner, with relief. And he didn't get married again, didn't consider himself necessary. He compared all his friends with Tinchik, and everyone was losing to her. And they met smarter and prettier, but were losing. He was doing his job with excitement, and then he was very successful in his business. You could even say that he became rich. He started thinking about who to leave it all for if there was no one to leave it. And when he seriously got sick, he agreed that he was lucky. He got sick in his old age when he lived long enough. But he didn't want to die. And the entrepreneurial excitement just fueled his vitality. And he continued to work just for this. He was happy that he was able to earn and show himself to many more people, if that means anything. He also founded a charity fund together with his partners, but all this seemed insufficient. And now it was confirmed again. He was a lover of luck. He still has the opportunity to buy wine. And his granddaughter came to him. She looks after him like other granddaughters look after normal, decent grandfathers. For salary. So what? We'll think that he's giving her pocket money. For now, pocket money. We'll talk to the lawyers tomorrow. Mom said that with such delicacy as Ollie is, it's very difficult to live. Grandma runs like a fast-footed lanyard, and you could already quit. With that old woman you saw right after the surgery, just day and night, you no longer need to work on such a job. If you weren't shy to ask for a pay, you would have been with us for a long time. You would have lived at home for a month, had a rest, and then you would have already thought about where and what job to look for. Or maybe you should study further. You're not the only responsible person in the world. Your German Danilovic won't die without you, like a monster without a beauty. If you want to show your decency, wait until they find a replacement for you and come back. Grandma misses you very much. She just doesn't admit it in life. See, she doesn't want to manipulate our little monster. Alia couldn't make up her mind to quit. But German Danilovic announced it one beautiful evening. You want to go home, don't you, Alia? Don't be shy. It's a natural desire. Go as far as you need to. Grigory Lvovich picked me up a seat for a replacement. I've been asking for it for a long time, even when you visited your grandmother after the surgery. Just in case, I warn you that you will not get rid of me. But you need to rest and be with your loved ones. I will be practicing the violin in the game without you. Come and evaluate. And Alia went with a light heart, promising to call at least once a week. Grandma really looked and felt great. How much it is possible at her age for an ordinary, not from Rothschild grandma. She glared with young, witty eyes and hinted that she would like to talk to her granddaughter alone. Alia had no idea what Grandma was thinking if Mom should not know about it. But when Mom went to work, Grandmother Tina took Alia for a walk to the park. She liked to chat during the walk, so she quickly tells you she smiled. The story is absolutely mystical in my taste. I laugh, but in fact it's not funny. So I'll start with the place of my career. When you visited me after the surgery and barely managed to leave, Magician Doctor came to me before I was discharged from the hospital with my medical card and I managed to talk to him. I'm curious what magic lottery ticket I got that my surgery was paid. I explained that I want to know who to thank. The doctor, used to the old-fashioned nonsense, answers about the charity fund. But I don't back down, but more precisely. The doctor shows me a patient copy of the bank certificate, sewn to the documents. And I read in small fonts that the operation was paid by the fund of Herman Danilovich Pokrovsky. Mystic, impossible. To make it clear to you, this is the person who called me Tinchik in conjunction with your father and mother and your grandfather. Are you a little interested, yes? So I will tell you everything in detail. When I came to my senses after the operation, the first thought was, you and my mother don't know half of my life, and you might not know if everything went wrong. But I didn't want to share it before, and now I do. It's easier for you to tell me first, then we'll think together how to present it to your mother. Would you like to see him? Asked Dahlia. Not long ago, I would have said a firm no, Grandma Tina answered with a little thought. And now I'll say, why not?